Good morning. This is Ron. It is Monday, April the 9th. Welcome to Story Time. And this is a Storytime Extra. And for the Storytime Extra, I'm going to go to rushlimbaugh.com via his app on on my other phone, and I'm going to be reading a small transcript from his show on April 6th, and then make some comments. So the clip or the transcript is from something called McNair Regrets Apology for NFL Prison Remark. Bob McNair, and this is Rush speaking. Bob McNair, who is the owner of the Houston Texans. Do you remember what Bob McNair said during their kerfuffle about players kneeling during the national anthem, disrespecting the American flag? McNair made a comment that he thought the inmates were running the prison, and it was time for the owners to reassert themselves and their control over the league because, after all, they are the owners. Well, everybody assumed that McNair was talking about the players, as the players were the inmates, and McNair wanted to put them back in prison. And then they said, see, this guy McNair, he's a racist. Now, Bob McNair's 80 years old. I think he's a Republican, but he has said all along that he was not talking about players. He was talking about league executives. He was talking about people whose names we never see, the junior executives who have more power than the owners do. He wasn't talking about the players, and he said that he now regrets apologizing. The main thing I regret is apologizing. From a Wall Street interview, he's being quoted here. Quote, main thing I regret is apologizing. I really don't have anything to apologize for, unquote. But he got caught up in the whole idea he was talking about the players. And of course, the phrase is, don't let the inmates run the asylum. But when he said prison instead of asylum, it gave the leftists a beeline to say, quote, see, he's a racist, because about 75% of the league is African American, and he thinks they're in prison or should be. Obviously, the guy is a racist, unquote. So he apologized because they were trying to slough the racial motive off on him, and he maintained that he was never talking about players. He was talking about executives who were actually trying to obstruct various desires and initiatives the owners were trying to push within the league. And so I'm picking this particular transcript because it illustrates perfectly the point about how the Republicans aid and abet the left. And they're aiding and abetting the left here. Rush Limbaugh is, and so is Mr. McNair. Mr. McNair aided and abetted the left when he apologized for nothing, because the left never makes actual accusations. They don't come out and make accusations, for instance, that you are a racist or whatever. And what I mean by an accusation is something that has evidence and or proof. It's one thing to say, you're a racist because I have a picture of you at a Ku Klux Klan rally. Okay. It's another thing to say, you're a racist simply because I say so. That's something different. That second example is what's called an arbitrary remark. And Ayn Rand knew and was correct when she said, all arbitrary statements must be ignored. That's what Mr. McNair should have done. What he should have done was, when they start coming out with suggestions, because they never come out and call somebody a racist flat out. They'll suggest that it's racist in some way, shape, or form, baiting the Republican into trying to defend himself. And when you do that with an arbitrary statement, what you end up looking like is the very thing you're trying to avoid. And in this case, a racist. Mr. McNair, when he apologizes, looks like a racist who's really trying to get away with something. And when he objects or protests, again, he looks like a racist who is trying to get away with something. Now, he comes out and says this time, he makes it worse by saying, well, I shouldn't have apologized, not because it was an arbitrary statement. That's what he should have said. I shouldn't have apologized because it was an arbitrary statement. They offered no evidence, no proof. It was just mudslinging. So I should have ignored it. No, he says, well, I shouldn't have apologized because I had a good reason for being a racist, or I was a racist that was misunderstood. That what I meant to say, or What should have been understood was that I was speaking about executives and not the players. So, and again, all he does is make himself look worse. He just makes himself look like, he continues to make himself look like a racist who's simply making excuses and who is simply trying to get away with something and doing poorly. Rush Limbaugh should have noted this. This is the number one mistake that he makes, is that he's oblivious to arbitrary statements. He comments on arbitrary statements on a daily basis. And in so doing, again, he helps to aid and abet the left by making Republicans and conservatives look bad, look like the very kinds of people that the left wants to suggest that they are. And the purpose of that is to put the Republicans under psychological pressure so that eventually Republicans will just give up. We can't win. And if you can't beat them, join them and start promoting the movements of the left. Now, Rush Limbaugh doesn't quite yet go far as promoting the movements of the left, but he's certainly not doing Republicans and conservatives, and that even including his own followers, the people that listen to his show on a regular basis and are devoted to him, any favors. He's hurting them, as a matter of fact, because he fails to recognize this, he fails to comment on it, and he thinks that he is helping the situation by going ahead and commenting on Mr. McNair's, giving basically approval to what Mr. McNair did in coming out and clearing the air about what it is that he meant or didn't mean in regards to his prison statement. So, and that's going to be it for today's, a short one. What I'm going to be doing from now on is that there's going to be no more Storytime extras. This is the last one. It's all going to be incorporated into one show. So what I'm going to be doing is segmenting it. So I'll have a first part and a second part. And the second part, tentatively, will be the Storytime extra part. And so also I wanted to make note that the direction that this is all going is in the direction of spending more time critiquing Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, and other right-wing conservative pundits about the way that they aid and abet the left. The whole reason that the left continues to exist today, they should have disappeared from this country back in the early 90s when the Soviet Union went away, but because of the incompetence and general stupidity of people on the right, conservatives, and Republicans in general, the left continues to thrive, and they shouldn't. They should have been dead and buried long ago, at least in terms as a political philosophy, not in terms thinking of actual human beings, but as a political philosophy, socialism should have been dropped in the ground 30 years ago. So, but anyways, that's going to be going more in that direction, making critiques of Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, and the mistakes that the people on the right are making, and hopefully helping you not to make the same mistakes. Train you to listen so that when you are listening to Rush Limbaugh, you are listening to Sean Hannity, you can pick up those mistakes and not repeat them. Because also one of the directions I want to go here is that helping people deal with socialism at street level. That's where the rubber meets the road. It is dealing with socialists that you have in your life each and every day. Your mother, your daughter, your son, your cousins, your neighbors, your coworkers, the people that you see at the AYSO soccer games, the people that you meet in line at Vaughn's, maybe the checker, the cashier. So those are the people that are going to put you on the spot, that are going to try and trip you up, that are going to try and embarrass you. And I'm going to show you techniques on how to deal with those people and shut them up, embarrass them, put them on the spot, so it takes the psychological pressure off of you, puts it right back onto them where it belongs in the first place, and in so doing, renders the whole movement ineffective. So until tomorrow, thank you very much for joining me, and have a great day.